Good evening. Welcome to the Buck Stops here. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program tonight, when do we in India get real about moving away from petrol and diesel powered vehicles to shifting comprehensively to electric powered vehicles? I know a lot in the audience, people who are watching, are laughing at that question. Well, we shouldn't be laughing really. The government had announced that 2030 was the target, but since then the Minister Nitin Gadkari seems to have softened his position somewhat, stating that it was not the intention of the government to bankrupt any car company. So where really does that leave us? On the program tonight, some of the biggest names in the auto industry, the Bollywood star Gul Panag, who herself drives an electric car, and environment expert Sunita Narayan with us on the dream to go dream. The dream to go green. And whether it is the auto industry that's essentially the stumbling block. Well, let's go straight across now to Gul Panag as we start our debate this evening. 2030, will it be possible for us to shift completely away from petrol and diesel and have electric powered vehicles? Is that at all possible? Gul, thanks very much for being with us. 2030, that's what the minister said. Some would say what he said yesterday, he backed down just a little bit. But 2030, do you think it's doable?
Vishnu, I don't think the government has indicated indirectly. They have had a rather open declaration of intent when they say that they plan to go fully EV by 2030. I think the important thing here is to recognize that the government is being very proactive and is actually acting like a mature and a forward-thinking government of any developed nation would. Is it achievable? Well, the policy infrastructure is somewhat beginning to fall into place, but it is going to be a very, very challenging task to try and psychologically convince drivers out there that electric vehicles are indeed an alternative. Gul, or rather the only alternative.
You drive electric cars. How long have you been driving an electric car, and why did you make this choice?
So I've been driving an electric car, Vishnu, since 2015. I'm actually on my second electric car. I used to drive a two-door Mahindra Reva E2O, and now I've upgraded to a four-door, and I couldn't be happier. It works very well for my local commute. It is it's very trouble-free. In fact, I charge it about not more than twice a week, and I've actually not driven my other cars as much as I drive the electric car these days. In fact, I have to remind myself, put a reminder on my phone to drive the other cars, because you know what tends to happen in Bombay when you don't drive your cars regularly. But the point I'm trying to make is the convenience of electric is unparalleled, but it is a conditional switch that we need to make, and the government mission and the government vision to take us towards that direction is a very laudable one, and one must appreciate it. And even if by 2030 as little as 20% people or 20% vehicles switch to EV, that's a massive number. I mean, we're looking at close to 5 million vehicular sales every year over four-wheelers and two-wheelers. So even 20% of that number is a massive number. The other thing to also keep in mind when we speak of electric vehicles is to put it in context. So I'm actually going to take a step ahead and be the devil's advocate for a moment, even though I'm completely converted. In fact, I'm probably a pioneer in at least my area. I don't see very many electric cars. Now, when I say we need to associate and adapt and view electric mobility like we did when we were adapting to the internet. So back in the 90s, we had dial-up. You were stuck to your house if you had to access the internet, and you had the slow VSNL connection that would take you online, remember?
Yeah.
And then as time went by, our dependency on that dial-up reduced, and newer technology innovations came. Try and see that in perspective when you view electric mobility. The time's not going to be very far when range is going to increase, when infrastructure will be readily available, although that is not a prerequisite to go electric. Okay. For instance, back in the day when we first made the switch to mobile phones, we didn't look for other people's charging infrastructure to charge our phones. We left home with our phones charged. This is before the advent of charging stations, courtesy charging stations. This is before the advent of power banks. We were self-sufficient. So I would like to encourage the viewers to think about that time and how quick the transition has been.
All right.
So even here, today, I am completely self-sufficient. I don't plan to run out of charge somewhere and then rely on infrastructure to charge my vehicle.
Okay.
So within the city, I think
it makes sense. It makes sense within the city. I take that point completely, Gul. Thanks very much for sharing that with us, and thanks very much for setting an example in using an electric car yourself. Joining us in the studio, BVR Subbu, former president of Hyundai Motors India, Jagdish Khattar, who's been associated with Maruti for a very long time now, the founder of Carnation Auto, Sunita Narayan, director of the Center for Science and Environment. Mr. Khattar, the sense is that it's not a lack of willingness among people to adopt electric cars. It's just that the auto industry doesn't want to do it because, why? Is it because it's economically unsustainable to actually achieve this by what, 2030?
Sorry, there has been interruption, but you know, I got your question now. You know, let me say first that automobile industry is ready to follow any direction which is given by the government. There is no problem in that, and one should not get a feeling that they are reluctant to do so. What they are really asking for is a roadmap. It cannot be pulled out of the rabbit, because all this, anything in the auto industry takes 8 to 10 years to follow the law. All our manufacturers have been working in many countries and they have been following the law. So, I mean, it is a part of their DNA to follow the local laws. So, there is no issue on that. But, you know, same time, let me raise certain issues. I mean, the lady gave an example of mobile infrastructure, etc. First of all, my fear is, by talking about 2030 and all cars going, or all automobiles going electric, are we getting away from facing today's problem? Are we saying that you wait till 2030, the pollution would go away because there will be electric cars? What happens till then? I mean, I hope there is not a diversion, and we need to tackle today's problem.
It's not really a diversion, sir. That's a goal, and we need to fix the problem as it stands now with the existing technology. But unless we plan for the future, many would say that, all right, Mr. Khattar, 1 second. Sunita, would you agree with him that it takes 8 to 10 years, that's one of the points Mr. Khattar said, for a car company to actually change? You know, so how do we, 2030 is not that far away.
No, absolutely, Vishnu, but I think that's exactly why the government's you know, assertion right now, and I think the minister has not backed down, in my view. The minister has only restated his position, saying the government has a clear goal to move us towards electric mobility. And I think that's a very forward-looking statement. And I disagree with Mr. Khattar, because that's exactly the roadmap that the industry should have been asking. And the government is saying, listen, we have a forward-looking plan. We want you to move towards it. And we are putting together a paper that we're taking to cabinet, which is also what I heard the minister say, which will spell out the policy and the directions. Because remember, till now, we have not really had an e-vehicle policy.
There's no
we've had some sort of broad talk about it, but in fact, and I'm sure the auto industry will bear me out when I say, they've made money because they have been able to produce what I call a fake electric. They call a mild electric or a mild hybrid, and it's actually a fake hybrid, and got huge amount of subsidy. And got huge amount of subsidy.
It was a feel-good factor.
It was no, it wasn't a feel-good factor. It was somebody making getting a lot of subsidy for diesel, fake hybrid. Now, I think it's good the government's coming up. And your other question, can it be done? Yes, it can be done. We did the CNG transition in just 2 years in Delhi. We can get the infrastructure. Things are moving very fast in the electric field. More than anything, we need to make sure that we are doing electric because of local air pollution. We are also doing electric because of our imperative of reducing our import bill. So we have a clear reason for moving towards it, and environmental reason.
Absolutely. Mr. Subbu, you know, as the former president of Hyundai, and for that matter, how would any car company in India actually transition to that? And I'll tell you why I'm asking that. There were petrol cars initially which sold a lot. The industry moved entirely to diesel, almost with 70% of passenger cars at one stage turned out to be diesel cars. Now the legislation has changed once again, and petrol cars are once again encouraged much more. So you've had factories changing, new technology coming in, and now if the government says that look 2030 or whatever it is, you need to change once again, how exactly does any car company hope to do that and make a profit, transition to new technology?
Well, Vishnu,
How
let's
is it
look at the
viable?
architecture of cars. How significant, how different really is an electric car? The chassis systems are the same, the body is the same, the interiors are the same, everything is the same. What you're really doing is you're putting in a new drive line, which is you're taking away an engine, an IC engine, putting an electric motor into it, you're removing the transmission, and you're putting controllers, and you're putting a battery system. That's all you're doing. So what are you really doing? You are making redundant a huge chunk of capacity that and capital expenditures that companies have put in place to make engines. Nothing more than that. Can they do it faster than that? Of course they can do it faster than that. The moment consumers start actually driving new electric cars, consumers will stand in queue for electric cars, and willy-nilly the industry will have to move to electric cars themselves, because if they don't, there'll be history.
No, but
so I think it's not so difficult.
Okay,
moving between today and 2030, I expect to see that as soon as you see one person coming in the good electric cars, I mean not the kind that we really see today, but international quality electric cars, I believe you will see a very rapid transformation pushed by the consumer. The
Sunita, you had a point, and then I'll go back to Mr. Khattar.
No, yes. 2 points. One, I think on your diesel point and the petrol point. Let's be clear, it was all about a policy distortion.
Yeah.
Okay, you had a price differential which was very huge. People moved to diesel because of the price advantage. We argued then, and with you many times, Vishnu, saying that we basically want that distortion removed. And we knew the government couldn't bring the prices together, so we said do something about diesel. Now the policy has changed, the price differential is lower, you have a cap, 10-year-old cap on diesel cars, you're seeing already consumers moving away from diesel. So the policy signal is very important, and I think that's the point for electric. The other point for electric is how do you define mobility, okay? That's very important, because if the emphasis on mobility is private cars still, then I think electric is a good option, but not a great option.
So it goes back to public transport.
Because remember, electric still means generation of electricity.
Possibly to
and therefore
energy.
all you're doing is to move the source of pollution. Okay, but if you do electric buses and electric public mobility, you're basically changing the mobility pattern, reducing the demand for the number of vehicles, then you're getting a clear game changer. You're getting pollution abated locally, you're also getting pollution abated nationally.